everybody.
Hi.
How are you all doing today on a perfectly windy Thursday here, wherever I'm at? But anyways,
pretty good, I guess.
what? Eric's pretty sad, but I'm going to tell you some stuff first before I get into why he's so sad. We're Fantasy Top 5.
Yeah.
If you're on here watching us, maybe you've seen us before, maybe you haven't. We're a little podcast. We talk a little fantasy football. And I'm Sean.
And I'm Eric.
This is, my friend Eric. He's awfully sad. Do you want to tell us why you're so dang sad?
Yeah. Well, you know how like 2 days ago it was the election, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody voted for the president.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think most people know about it.
Yeah,
Well,
I think people have heard, maybe.
Turns out the guy I voted for, he didn't win.
Oh, you're a big Romney guy. I actually, it kind of surprises me.
What?
Mitt Romney, the guy who lost to Obama.
Guy.
Oh, who'd you vote for then?
I voted for Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning.
Yeah. Why?
I didn't realize he was. I didn't realize he was running for president.
Well, I wrote his name in.
Oh, you wrote his
name in?
name
And I thought that the whole world would vote. I thought the whole world would write his name in. He ran in my.
Yeah.
I think.
I actually think I remember hearing that he won. He won in Colorado. So that does make sense.
They do love him there. They do love him
do.
there. And I think I had the one vote here. And I was kind of depressed. I also, I took it and I also wrote in my own proposition as well that I was hoping would get passed and be in the Constitution, which was Manning Mondays. It was Proposition M.
Oh, okay.
That every Monday night should be Peyton Manning, and that the Broncos
or
should
Eli
play
Manning, or just Peyton.
Well, most people were against it because I specifically said in there Eli can never play a Monday night game, even though it's Manning.
What if he's playing the Broncos?
I guess maybe that's why people didn't vote for it, because I didn't really.
You didn't really specify?
No, I didn't. I wrote never, so I'm going to go ahead and say never.
Oh, okay. So he's required to sit out if he's playing his brother.
Yeah. The backup actually has to play. That's the rule.
Okay.
But that didn't pass either. So it was just all around. I stayed up really late Tuesday, and they didn't even show his face once on CNN.
That is rough.
I know. I wrote him in there.
You'd think they'd at least mention him.
Yeah, you think they would have at least mentioned, hey, one guy in Utah voted for Peyton Manning for president.
Yeah.
But
They just talked about Romney, and I assume that Peyton Manning couldn't have been that far off from. He easily came in third.
I'm glad we're on the same page here, Sean, because.
Well, I'm sorry you're so upset about it.
For a while, I really am. Yeah, that was.
Well, he can start campaigning again in like three years, and then maybe he'll be in next term. Who knows?
Hopefully, that's what I'm. That's the only thing that's kept my head up. It's the only thing that's made me happy is it's always next time.
Yeah, hopefully, and then by that time he'll probably be out of the NFL, so it might be a little different.
And by that time he should have won four Super Bowls. Since then,
yeah,
the
probably
last 4. So I think that should help.
So
his
you'll have
chances.
5 total.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
The next 4, all him. So anyway, there we go. We are Fantasy Top 5. Sean already said everything. We do a podcast on Justin TV and iTunes and Stitcher and everything else. And
yeah, we talk like I said before. We talk fantasy football. We're here to answer all your questions. So go ahead and throw those over to us. If you're in the chat room, just write it in there. You can hit us up on Twitter at Fantasy Top 5.
You can.
You can get us on our Facebook page, also Fantasy Top 5.
And our website, fantasytop5.com.
Tumblr, Fantasy Top 5. Basically, Fantasy Top 5 anywhere you can get us. So, yeah.
It's very true. And come ask us questions. And come in the chat, because this is a Thursday show. And so anybody listening to the show on iTunes or Stitcher or on our website or anywhere else, they're not going to get all the Thursday fantasy advice, which it happens, you know. It happens. We definitely throw some Thursday stuff in, and
and also it's one of
it's
one of those things where the Thursday night game might not look like it'd be the most exciting game, but
I'm so
if you're a big fantasy player, there's actually a lot of hidden gems in that game.
It's true.
So
and we will go over them.
We're definitely wanting to help you guys out. So any questions, just go ahead and shoot them over to us.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. We always start out every show with our Newses and Bruises, which is our top 5 news stories and top 5 injury reports of the week. And the first one usually has to do with our funny intro. And the first one is politics, which we don't normally talk about. And we're actually not going to talk about it again. But if you want, you can actually find a lot of information online for all of the people who gave money to which party And it's actually quite interesting. I didn't write any of them down, and I don't know if we should go over it. But it is kind of interesting. Not only that, but also Colorado and Washington both legalized marijuana.
Which is pretty interesting because it's not just medical marijuana, it's recreational marijuana, right?
Yes, but the NFL told everyone, especially the Broncos and the Seahawks, no, it's not allowed here. It may be allowed in your and Peyton Manning, I think he's going to fight it.
Yeah.
I think he likes to get down.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is I heard the Seahawks actually said, hey, Marshawn Lynch, you're not fooling anyone. We know why you like Skittles so much. Keep it hidden still. We don't want to know about that. That's off-season stuff.
Yeah, but pretty crazy stuff. I thought it was quite funny. And, yeah, there is a lot of stuff. You can see people that gave money to which side. My number 2 report is apparently there are reports that John Gruden wants to return to coaching.
Oh.
Which I feel like they talk about this all the time.
Yeah, and the thing with Gruden is Gruden is waiting for Norv Turner to be out of San Diego, and that's where he wants to be. It's kind of one of those things that I think everyone has been talking about forever, and it's kind of common knowledge that that's at least where everyone thinks he wants to go. I've never heard him come out and say it, but that's what everyone. I don't know if he's
ever said it at all. They just always report about it.
Yeah, but it's not even coaching. Whenever they get down to it, they always say San Diego for some reason. And that's the thing is they have tons of talent. I'm always surprised with how bad they manage to do each year. So, and Gruden's a hell of a coach. Like he took the Raiders from being a down team to being awesome and making it to the AFC Championship game. And then the Tuck rule came in and everything. And they went to Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay kind of was off of the. He came in and the team was already good, and so he kind of just let him in there. But he's a dang good coach. So.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. Also, like they said, he wants the perfect situation, which San Diego could be. Mm-hmm. It could possibly be.
North Turner's a pretty bad coach.
They have talent there, so.
Yeah, they do.
Number 3, and this actually wasn't the most exciting news week. These 5 news stories aren't the most exciting. But number 3, the Titans are expected to start Jake Locker over Hasselbeck, which is kind of funny because we actually mentioned this on Monday, that the Titans had such a bad game. Did we mention it, or was I just thinking it?
Who knows? Probably.
Maybe I was just thinking it. But I was just thinking that, yeah, since they had such a bad game, they've kind of held Locker back and been like, no, we'll give you some more time. Hasselbeck's been doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they have one huge blowout from Chicago. And they're like, all right, Hasselbeck, see you. We got Locker here.
Yeah, that was a bad
He's the future. I know you did good.
For a time.
And so it's like, the NFL just, I don't know, it just blows me away. It's like they're so quick to be like, oh my gosh, we have our new guy.
Yeah, I don't think Locker would have done much better against the Bears.
I don't think so either. But it's just so funny because that really is how it is. Whoever has the hot hand that is amazing, and that's who they go with. And as soon as he has one bad game, and it's the same with one good game too. You have one good game, and all of a sudden everyone wants you. I guess that's all sports. I guess it's.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of players that are flash in the pan. Not saying Hasselbeck is. That's actually completely
it's one of those
different.
things like
Hasselbeck's
Tebow
old
time, Linsanity, like all these things that just like right away people just jump on the bandwagon like that.
And this isn't that situation. Hasselbeck's, of course,
they've
not
wanted to
guy,
go with Locker the whole time.
But it's just funny that they kind of kept telling Locker, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. You need more time. I know you're feeling great, but Hasselbeck's playing really well, so we don't want to put you in there yet. Yeah. And then as soon as he has one bad game, like, oh, Jake Locker's starting. Sorry, Hasselbeck, get out of here.
Indeed.
So there's that. Number 4, apparently Rashard Mendenhall is expected to start when he's healthy for the Steelers. It doesn't look like it's going to be this week. But this is one that's actually the exact opposite because Mendenhall.
I was thinking that. I was like, that actually automatically contradicts your point you were making.
Which I do kind of wonder if Dwyer had stayed healthy and kept having the games he's having. I wonder if they would have said this because a lot of that, like you said, Dwyer looked really good. Dwyer looked like
I would start Dwyer,
the type of running back that they want for the Steelers, and he then got injured. Like every Steelers running back this year.
And that's the thing is with Rashard Mendenhall, he does still have. I don't think he'll play this week. They're saying that maybe, but I think it's kind of a long shot. And I think they'll let him rest because Redmond's done decent when he's had the chance to an extent, and Dwyer's looked awesome. So I think they're going to give him enough time to recover. I think it's going to be one of those things that they'll keep letting him recover until Dwyer slips up or until both of them aren't productive, kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely makes it hard for fantasy, though.
And that's the thing is you want to get all three of them work because then you can trade one in the offseason for actual value, and that really does help a team that's getting a little bit older like the Steelers are.
That's very true. And Mendenhall, yeah, they could maybe, if Dwyer ends up being good, they could trade him off. But and my number 5 is Charles Tillman is expected to have a baby on Monday, but says he'll play on Sunday. And so it's not exciting news, but it's news. Tillman is definitely, I would say, probably the best defensive player in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
There's been a few that have been close. Watts looked pretty good, but Tillman
just causes turnover. He had 4
Wow.
forced fumbles on Sunday. Like, it's ridiculous.
But the reason it is kind of is because he has said before in the past that he's a family guy and he does put his family before the NFL. So if they did happen to have the baby on Sunday, he could be out. But he said, we're having the baby on Monday, so I'm playing.
Yeah. He's like, hey, baby, stay in there.
I got a game to play. And it's a pretty intense game because it's against Houston, so it'll be...
Yeah, that game is going to be insane.
Yeah, it'll be a really crazy game. So there's that. We'll move on to the bruises. McFadden missed practice along with Mike Goodson, and Tywan Jones looked like he's been getting all the starting reps in practice. So definitely keep an eye on it. I have McFadden, and
I have McFadden in another league.
so I would start looking for someone. We'll talk about people to pick up later, our players to start, and in a pinch. But it doesn't look like he's going to play. My number 2 is Antonio Brown, who I also have on that same league, and is most likely not going to play as well. So you may also want to go try to find someone to replace him as well.
There's a couple of guys that look good tonight, and then also if you're a big, I got to stick with the Steelers guy. Emmanuel Sanders isn't a bad pickup there either.
That's very true. And he's actually, he's had some decent games. He still gets looks, and with him out, he could have a really big game. It's just kind of, it's a Monday, so it's kind of...
It's hard because you never know, yeah.
Number 3 is Percy Harvin. Did not practice and is day-to-day. So that's definitely one you want to keep an eye on. Number 4 is Owen Daniels, who also missed practice, which is crazy.
Which is big for the Texans because he's been a big part of that offense.
Yes. And number 5 is Titus Young, who has missed 2 practices, which is also crazy because he had that really huge game. And if he doesn't play, that's not very good for Calvin Johnson owners because he definitely, I think, was the sole reason that Calvin Johnson had a decent game last week is because they were like, they actually had to look that week and be like, okay, we need to put someone on this Titus Young guy.
Minnesota's got a bad pass defense, though, so I think Calvin
true.
Johnson will do all right.
That's very true.
And I think now they had a productive game, his knee's doing a lot better, I heard. I'm just joking.
He actually did sit out practice.
Yeah, it's that
because of
thing.
the
They're
sore knee,
letting
but-
it's like Bradshaw. Ahmad Bradshaw doesn't practice at all anymore. He's just like, I'm going to sit out practice. I'll play, though. Oh, yeah, I'll be starting. But I'm not going to practice.
But I'm sore.
Yeah. It's like Andre Brown, go ahead and take your reps here in practice. I'll be playing in the
Hope
game.
you enjoy
though.
it.
Yeah. All right. And now
Well, there we go. There's the newses and bruises.
Yeah, now we're going to move over to the top 5 drop-offs and bounce-backs. And this week, I'm kind of taking a bold approach on a few of these. So people are, and a few are going to be people that are going to be players that people are going to be like, I can't not play them. But and I kind of say that coming into my number 1, which is Arian Foster, who
I
was.
wouldn't play him. I wouldn't start him ever.
Oh, okay. So never mind. I was way off on how I thought people would react to it. But so far, he's the number 3 fantasy running back so far this season, and he's been a huge part of why the Texans are 7-1. But
Yep.
this week he's going up against the Bears defense, and the Bears defense is just insane against basically in all aspects. They're number 2 against the run. They're number 1 against quarterbacks.
Yep.
Like, they're just an awesome defense. So I think they're going to I think they're going to shut him down to an extent. Like, I still think he'll have an okay game just because of the amount of work he gets. But I wouldn't expect Foster to come out and just run all over the Bears. Like, if he did, I would be super surprised. But like I said, it's one of those guys, if I had Arian Foster this week and I didn't have, I don't know. I don't even know which guys to reference. There's so many people that are hurt and stuff. But I don't know who I would play over him
Yeah,
because he's Arian
I
Foster.
feel like you almost have to start him. It's kind of just that thing where you just don't expect huge points, which can go into the play. I mean, that can go into it as well because, there is always that where you kind of figure a guy's not going to have that good of a game. Maybe you kind of play someone that maybe has potential to have a big game or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people are risk takers out there, so you never know. Maybe this will help someone.
and that's the thing is Chris Johnson actually had a really big game against him, but it was all in garbage time, and that's not going to happen with Arian Foster. That's not going to be a huge blowout, 51 to whatever. It's going to be a close game because they're both really good teams. So you can't really expect him to get the garbage time if people are like, well, Chris Johnson had a good game against him.
It was all mostly on one play, which it counts. That one play counts, but like Eric said, it's all in garbage time.
And Arian Foster's not going to get that. So don't use that as a...
Yeah, and also speaking of Chris Johnson, he's actually my number 2 drop-off of the week. And that's the thing, he's finally looked like he's back. But and I know the numbers don't say it. I think the Dolphins are actually ranked as the 6th best defense against the run. But I personally think they're really the best team against the run. If I had to pick a team and say they're the best against the run, I would say it's the Dolphins. I think a lot of people don't pass a whole lot on like Chicago and run a whole lot on like Chicago and the Texans and the Patriots, who are guys that are a little bit higher than the Dolphins. But I think that's because they put so many points on the board that they have to pass against them. And the Dolphins don't put up as many points. I think so they just get a lot more work against them. But I think Chris Johnson is going to go out there and I think he's going to have a basically just a flop game. I think he's going to get beaten up, and but that's the thing is I don't think the Dolphins are going to get up a ton on them, so it's hard to say what's going to happen in the game. But I would see if you have someone you could play over Johnson. I still don't think he's earned the spot of being like, I have to start him every week.
And that's the thing, against the Bears, it definitely was kind of surprising that he ended up with the points that he did, but yeah, it was all garbage time. So
yeah. All right, and then my 3rd drop-off of the week is Eric Decker, who has been amazing lately.
Yeah, he has.
He's had 7 touchdowns in the last 5 games.
He's looked like a superstar.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And if you listen to the podcast in the preseason, I told Eric, because everyone's really high on Demaryius Thomas, and I said Eric Decker is a solid route runner. Demaryius Thomas is a broken play guy. That's why he's so good. That's why he was so good for Tebow. But at the same time, they're using Demaryius Thomas a lot. But I said Eric Decker will be the guy. I know Peyton Manning will like his style. And he has turned into Peyton Manning's favorite receiver. And then also, he's going up against the Panthers defense, which I think me and Eric both were guilty of being like, the Panthers defense, they're awful. But they actually have been pretty good against wide receivers. And they've been actually awesome lately. Like the game last week, they looked insane. Like they didn't let RG3 or really any of the Chiefs do anything on them, and they're giving up the 3rd least amount of points to receivers, and it's surprising because I got so down on them after watching that Giants game when the Giants just did whatever they wanted to them. But other than that game, they've actually been pretty good.
It's been weird because they've looked really good, and then they've looked bad at times as well. But
yeah,
it's crazy.
And I think that win last week maybe will help them get on track. I don't know if they'll win the Broncos. The Broncos have looked pretty good, and the main thing with the Broncos has been that they've been balanced. I don't think they win the games they've been winning if they don't have a running back like McGahee that's been helping them out.
And then the defense as well.
Yeah.
It's just in general, they just look like a really good team on all. The defenses look great. The runnings look great. Yeah, the wide receivers have looked great.
And that's the thing is it's not even that they've looked great all the time. All of them have had their mistakes. Like Demaryius Thomas has been surprising this year with how much he fumbles and stuff. But it's
Eric
one of those
Decker tripped over grass.
Yeah.
It's one of those Buffalo Wild Wings moment.
Yeah. It's one of those things though that when they need someone to step up, one of those 3 aspects has stepped up. So basically I don't think Eric Decker catches a touchdown this week. That's my prediction. So maybe I'll be wrong, maybe I won't. But
I think it's a good prediction.
Thank you. And my number 4 drop-off of the week is Phillip Rivers, who had a bit of a bounce-back game last week against the Chiefs. He had 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have 1 interception, though. which was a super Phillip Rivers interception right before halftime. Could have gotten more points and just threw it in the back of the end zone and got it intercepted. And that was still when the Chiefs were really in it, because the Chiefs were in it until it looks like a blowout, but they were in it until like the fourth quarter, and the defense is just like, we're going to score 2 quick touchdowns. So, yeah, I just think this week against Tampa Bay, who was actually giving up a ton of points to quarterbacks and to wide receivers. So it's kind of crazy of me to do this, but I just think
it's bold.
The Buccaneers, who have the 3rd most interceptions in the league at 13, are going to take advantage of Phillip Rivers' habit of throwing interceptions. Like, he loves to give a turnover. Like, so I think they're going to come out and they're going to take advantage of that. And the Buccaneers are so, I think they're on a high, like they're on a streak right now, and they have come out of some games looking amazing. Even games that they've lost, they've looked great. So I think they're just gonna keep it up, and I think they're gonna shut down Phillip Rivers and the Chargers. All right, and then my 5th drop off of the week is Matt Forte, who had his first 20-plus point game of the season last week against the Titans. But this week he is going up against the Texans, and the Texans, they don't mess around a whole lot. They just go out there and kick people's asses, basically. And I think Forte is going to be a victim of that. And I don't know what it is about Forte, but Forte's kind of surprised me with how down he's been so far this season. Like, he hasn't been a Chris Johnson by any means, but Matt Forte is one of those guys that gets you 20-plus points in 13 games a season. Like, he was amazing last year until he got hurt.
Forte's crazy good.
Yeah, and I just think the Texans are going to come out and they're going to flex their muscles. They're going to come out and be like, you're not going to run on us. And that's the thing, is this game, it's the Sunday night game, I believe, and it's going to be insane. Like, the Texans give up the third least points to running backs, and Chicago gives up the 2nd most. So it's just that thing. They're both in the top 5 in every aspect of defense. And I think it's going to be, I don't even know what it's going to be, but I know it's going to be exciting. Like, because that's the thing, is they both have been doing good scoring too. But then there's these 2 defenses. Just, I don't know. I'm excited about that game, but I'm not excited about any of the guys you'd want to start fantasy wise there, because they could get completely shut down. Even the defenses, like, I don't think the defenses are going to score a bunch of touchdowns in this game either.
It'll be crazy. There'll be so much defense and so much offense. There'll be so much scoring and so little scoring.
I do agree. I do have to agree with you on that. There's
defenses are just going to destroy the offenses, but the offense is going to throw all over the defenses.
Yeah, that's how it's going to go.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. What is this game going to be like? I feel like it's, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good point.
I know. Like, the world could end after this game just because of how crazy it is.
The world just collapses because there's too much defense in one game.
And offense.
It can't handle it. All right, but now we're going to move over to the bounce backs. My number 1 bounce back of this week is actually playing in tonight's game, and that's Rashard Jennings, who only had 45 yards on 12 runs against the Lions last week. But Jennings has had the starting job for 2 weeks now, and he hasn't really done a lot to be like, look, I'm awesome. I got the starting job, and I can show you guys what I can do. But this week he's going up against the Colts. The Colts are not a good running defense, and the Lions actually are a pretty decent run defense. Mm-hmm. So I think Rashard Jennings, I think this is the game that he takes his opportunity and shows people what he can actually do. And I think he's going to take advantage of it, and I think he's going to get 15-plus points. Like, I really do. I have a good feeling about Rashard Jennings tonight. So I think if you have him because MJD is hurt probably. So you're probably having to start him anyways. But yeah, if you got him, start him.
How owned is he?
What's that?
How high owned is he?
I actually don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know either. I'll look that up. You can keep going.
All right, cool. My second bounce back of the week is Matt Stafford, who last week he did have 285 yards, but he had no touchdowns. And I honestly think all of that, it has to do with the fact that the Lions were just running all over. Like, they were just running all over people in that game. And that was against the Jaguars, who the Jaguars do not have a good run defense. And the Vikings do have a good run defense. Mm-hmm. And they actually don't have a great pass defense by any means. And Stafford, I think the fact that he knows now, he's like, hey, if we run a little bit, it opens up passing lanes for Calvin Johnson. So I think they're still going to run, but I think the Vikings are going to shut it down. But I think the Vikings are going to have to respect the run after last game, and I think that's going to help him out. And the Vikings also give up the 5th most points to fantasy quarterbacks. So I really do think Matt Stafford's going to come out and just have a 350-yard game with like 3 touchdowns. I think he's going to be Matt Stafford from last year, and Titus Young's going to be out. So I think that means Calvin Johnson. I'm not calling Calvin Johnson a bounce back 'cause it's hard to predict with him, and I think that's the guy they're going to be focusing on.
But I think Stafford will definitely be, which is good. He's been so up and down that.
And I like the guy. I really do. I think he's a great quarterback. I think the Lions should have been focusing on the run a lot more than they have been, and it looks like they're really trying to now, and I think it's going to help them out. And then my third bounce back of the week is Eli Manning, who he's been awful the last 2 games. But this week and I actually think I mentioned it in Monday's podcast how bad he's been. But he is this week he's going up against the Bengals, and that's the same Bengals that last week Peyton went up against and just destroyed them. And I think Eli Manning's going to go into Cincinnati, and I think he's going to make it a family tradition just to put up huge points against the Bengals. So I would look for Eli Manning to have a very big game. And they need to take
tradition.
Yeah, it really is.
It's good.
And that's the thing is I think Eli I feel bad that he's right back in the passenger seat and in the NFL, and people are like, "Oh, Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning."
Eli has to try so much harder to get the spotlight.
Yeah, he really does. And
I don't love him.
And that's the thing, though, is
I'm
sometimes Peyton Manning doesn't have 4 and 5 point games. Is why, like, even when Peyton Manning has bad games, he doesn't have the bad games that Eli has. But I really do think Eli's going to bounce back, and I also think he needs to take advantage of how bad the Eagles and the Redskins and the really, Sean, and the Cowboys are doing. Like, they're all underplaying, and I think Eli really needs to take advantage of that, because I think 2 out of those 3 teams are going to bounce back. I don't know which 2 yet, because they've all had a lot of issues, but I don't think they're all going to just go silently and be like, "Oh, we're done." So I think he needs to bounce back.
Because the division is all still really close, which is weird because you think with the Giants winning the Super Bowl, they'd be a lot further ahead than they are. But Eli Manning really hasn't looked that great the last few weeks.
Yeah, he really hasn't. It's actually kind of sad. And then my 4th bounce back of the week is actually also playing quarterback on the other side of the ball in that same game. And that's Andy Dalton, who has had 2 games in a row also that have been kind of disappointing, especially after how well he started off the season. Like, he was getting 20-plus points in almost all the games in the beginning of the season, and he's kind of dropped down a bit.
Yeah, it was weird. It seemed like every time it was, just huge touchdown passes to A.J. Green, and you haven't really seen a whole lot of Andy Dalton.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
The last few weeks.
My issue with Cincinnati is I think that they are in a perfect spot to take advantage of how banged up the Ravens and the Pittsburgh has been in that division, and they just aren't. And that's the thing is, Andy Dalton, I think, is a very good quarterback, but I think him and the coaches need to get together and realize that he has a lot more weapons around him than just AJ Green. Like, AJ Green is great. I think he may be the best. Like, he's at least top 3 in receivers in the league right now, and he is. But that's the thing is, they have Hawkins, they have other guys to use. They aren't using the law firm very much in the backfield. Like, they're just not doing anything besides, I'll just put it up to AJ Green. But I do think Andy Dalton is going to figure it out. Like, they know that they know that they need to figure it out now, because the Steelers are getting hot, and the Ravens aren't losing games, but they're like, that's the thing is, they're just not losing. They're not doing well, but they're not losing. So Andy Dalton needs to figure something out to help his team out, and I'm thinking that this will be the game where he gets back on track. All right, and then
nice.
And then I know you're listening, Aaron. So this is for you. The 5th bounce back of the week is Joe Flacco, who has had 4 games in a row with less than 14 points. 2 of those games were less than 10 points. But this week he's going up against the Raiders at home. And it's not so much the Raiders that is the issue, because the Raiders have looked a lot better on defense. It doesn't look that way after last week. I think it clears the slate, and everyone's like, "Oh, no, they're terrible at defense because this guy who's running all over everyone ran all over them." But they've actually looked pretty good. But it's just that thing. Flacco plays so much better in Baltimore, and I just have the feeling this is going to be a high-scoring game, so I think he's going to have to do well. And I don't know. I just have a feeling that he's gonna do well. And I think the Raiders are gonna be focusing also on stopping Ray Rice because they saw what a guy who's built almost exactly like Ray Rice last week did to him. In
That's a good point.
the muscle hamster. So
Nickname.
yeah, it's an awful nickname. But yeah, so I think that I think Flacco's going to bounce back. And if not, it wouldn't surprise me, but I have a feeling that he's going to do well.
It is, and the Ravens don't have. They have these big games every once in a while where they look like Super Bowl competitors, and then they go and have a few games they squeak by and win, and then they'll have one in there that they just look awful. And I think they're definitely due for one of those just big games where they look like a Super Bowl team. I don't know if they're going to blow out the Raiders, but I do think they'll have one of those games where it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
the Ravens are good. I forgot.
Yeah, the thing is the Raiders are banged up right now at running back.
Yeah,
and stuff,
that's going to hurt a lot.
But they do have one thing going for them, which is I feel like the Ravens can watch all the tape they want on the Raiders this week. They're not going to have any idea what's going to happen because that backfield is so messed up. And I really think the Raiders feel like Reese is their most talent in the backfield. Like I know the Raiders coach has said that Tywan Jones isn't getting that much play because he's afraid he's going to fumble, like he's not secure with the ball and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where I think the Raiders are going to go out and they're going to have a special game plan set up for not having their first and second running back. So I don't think the Ravens are going to know exactly what to do against them. So
and
like
Carson
I said,
Palmer is probably going to throw a lot. So
and he's been good. And that's the thing is people are still referring to him as a turnover machine, but he actually hasn't been that bad at turning the ball over. So I think it's going to be an exciting game this Sunday.
Nice. All right, we'll move over to our startup sit downs and in a pinch section. Similar to most people's starter sit, but we also add 5 in a pinch. So if you really need help, which most weeks people do.
After all the injuries, people are in a pinch.
Yeah, I am actually playing a lot of these. So
if nothing else, someone needs one of these people for a flex. So I like it.
Exactly. So my first startup, which happens, Sean already talked about him, is Matt Stafford versus Minnesota. Minnesota's putting up the 5th most points to quarterbacks, and I like this later in the year because you can actually, a lot of these they've already played, especially if they're in the same division, they've already played the same team. So he's already played Minnesota, and he had a 20-point game against them when they already played this year. So it kind of helps with stats to be able to go in and be like, well, what did they do last time they played? And it kind of gives you a little bit of something to go off of. So since Matt Stafford already had a good game against him, and he hasn't had a lot of good games.
Yeah, Matt Stafford is a good guy, is a good quarterback though. So yeah, I think, like I already said, I think he's going to do good. So I agree with you 100% on that one. Yeah,
and that's been actually I did that a lot in here. Same thing with Stephen Ridley, who's my number 2 start versus Buffalo. Buffalo's giving up the 2nd most points to running backs, and he also had a very huge game against them earlier this year. So Stephen Ridley's been one of those that's had really good games, and then you kind of still don't know if you should play him or not. But this is definitely a week that you can go ahead and start him because Buffalo is absolutely awful. So, my number 3, and this one's a little bit out there, Malcolm Floyd, who also has kind of had some really good games and some really bad games. I think you have to start him.
Yeah, he's Phillip Rivers' favorite target. So yeah.
Yeah, and they're going up against Tampa Bay, who's giving up the 3rd most points to wide receivers, and so I think he'll have a good game. I think he'll get a touchdown. And I think he will have a good game. My number 4, and I hate tight ends. I didn't even want to put a tight end here. I almost just didn't because you just never know. And I don't want to be wrong.
I think this one's a little bit more safe than some, though.
I hope so. So my number 4 is Vernon Davis versus the Rams, which hurts. But he should have a good game against them. They're giving up the 8th most fantasy points to tight ends. And the last time they played, which was week 8, they gave up 30 points to a tight end, which was Gronk. So that doesn't really help you out a whole lot. Gronk kind of puts up points against everyone.
Yeah, he does.
But he had a 30-point game against him, and I can see Vernon Davis having a really good game against the Rams. It's a division game as well.
And Vernon Davis is kind of due for a big game, I think.
He is.
So.
That's another reason why I didn't fill That's the reason why I put him here. I erased like 3 or 4 of them. I'm like, no. And then Vernon Davis I felt comfortable with. My number 5, which we've talked about, the Steelers D maybe not being quite as good as they normally are, but they're going up against Kansas City. If anybody listened to last week's, I said they're going in here every single time. Whatever defense plays Kansas City is going to go in here, because they give up the most points to
and
opposing.
And Kansas City's just bad. Like they are
They
just
really are.
And I don't think it's all their fault. And that's the thing too, is a really quick thing with the Steelers. The Steelers, we've been hard on them this year, but they are actually literally they're top 10 in every aspect against they're top 10 in shutting down the quarterback fantasy wise, top 10 in shutting down the running back fantasy wise, top 10 in shutting back receivers and tight ends. So that even though they've had some issues, they're still not giving up a ton of points to
It's just
fantasy
crazy though, because
people.
they're not ranked very high.
Yeah, well,
What were they
they're
at
not.
last time I looked at them.
The thing is, I think a lot of it is
they're only averaging 5 points a game.
Yeah, well,
so
they're not that explosive defense that's getting touchdowns on the turnovers they have and
but
stuff
they're not
like that.
allowing a lot of
But yeah,
points.
they're just not they're not allowing people to do a whole lot against them.
But they're 25th. There's 24 that average more fantasy points
Mhm.
this year per game than the Steelers. But I think they will have a really huge game this week. So my sit-downs, my number 1 is Matt Schaub. Like we talked about earlier, Chicago is a really good defense.
Yeah, they are.
And I have a hard time playing like you said, really anybody at all that's playing
Yeah, that's
in
a
these
tough
two
game.
in these 2 games. It's just really hard. And Matt Schaub is definitely
He's
one of
not a quarterback that
it's a
scores
pretty
25
safe
points.
one. Yeah, it's a pretty safe. I went a little safe with that sit there. My number 2 is Steven Jackson versus San Francisco. Man, my start and sit is brutal against the Rams. Going up against San Francisco, which is the best team against running backs. They're only averaging 9 points. That's more than I thought.
Yeah, but
That's
it's 2
combined.
running backs. Yeah, so that's every
And-
team's every running back on each team. So that's actually not.
And
very
Daryl
good.
Richardson should probably get a few points since they seem to be using him a lot, which is another reason that I have a really hard time playing Steven Jackson. Not only going up against the best team, hasn't really done a whole lot this year, but he
Mhm.
also has Daryl Richardson.
He'll at least be fresh in this game, so I think
That's
a
good.
plus for him.
So if you have to play him, which I'm trying really hard not to, hopefully you can get a few points out of him because of that, but it's kind of scary. My number 3 is Sidney Rice versus the New York Jets. The New York Jets have not looked like a good team this year, but they have looked like a really good defense. Cromartie has just been absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
Revis
Cromartie's
went
been
down,
good.
and Cromartie just said, I got this, don't worry. And they are the best team against opposing wide receivers. So he should be on Sidney Rice, and I don't expect Sidney Rice to get even 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, well, that's
They've
the thing
been
is
that good.
Yeah, I think they'll have to use the other guys. But Sidney Rice has looked good, but yeah, I do agree with you. I think he's a tough guy to start this week.
Yeah, with how good Cromartie has looked. My number 4 is Dallas Clark versus San Diego, which, like we talked about, San Diego actually is a really good defense.
Mm-hmm.
They're the 3rd best team against tight ends. They're only averaging 3 points a game to opposing tight ends. And Dallas Clark actually has not looked very good this year at all.
Yeah,
He's had a
really
few games where he's looked okay, but for the most part, they're not really using him. I think he only got 2 or 3 points last week. And, so if you have him, I definitely would not play him this week. And my number 5 is the Falcons defense, which last week was a start. But going up against New Orleans, they just put up so many points that your defenses don't stand a chance. I feel like this may be the other continuing theme, which make it really easy to do this, is Kansas City. Whoever's playing Kansas City is a start. Whoever's playing the Saints is a sit.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is the
Makes
Saints...
it easy. Don't have
The
to
Saints
think very
have
hard.
Jimmy Graham all the way back now. They're missing Sproles, which hurts.
Yeah,
but
it does.
Jimmy Graham is insane. Like, I remember watching, I guess it wasn't that long ago, so it makes sense that I remember it. But last week, he catches the ball at the 5-yard line,
wasn't that long.
throws this guy over, and walks in. He's like, no, I got this. I'm back now. Watch. Catch. And goes in. Like, he's incredible.
He is. And then also with Sproles being out, Ivory stepped his game up and played really well.
Their whole running game in general was awesome. It was kind of like, wow, you guys all of a sudden because they don't run, they pass it to Sproles out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And then on like 3rd and 1, maybe they'll run, but for the most part, they just pass out of the backfield. But yeah, they looked good, and that's the thing is they look a lot more like the old Saints, and I like that.
Yeah, and I think Ivory was just excited to actually get the ball, so he just went off and did really, really well. My last 5 are in a pinch, which, yeah, like we talked about, some of them are going to be for tonight's game. So my number 1 is Ryan Tannehill versus Tennessee. They give up the 3rd most points to quarterbacks, and as we saw last week, Chicago put up a lot of points on Tennessee. So I think Tannehill should have a really good game. He's already looked really good.
Yeah,
He's
I like
already,
Tannehill.
And
I mean RT1.
RT1. But this week he definitely has a really good matchup, so it should be exciting. My number 2 is Vic Ballard, which is definitely a little bit more scary because Donald Brown is coming back. So I almost took him out, but Jacksonville's giving up the 3rd most points to running backs. And then looking at last week, and you look at the Lions that played Jacksonville, and you look at how many points LaShore got and how many points Bell got, and it made me feel really confident. So if you are in a pinch, I think
me and
Vic
you are
Ballard
both in a
should be
pinch, and I have him in one league, and you have
and
him
I
in
have
one
him
league.
in the
We're
other,
both playing him,
and we're playing him. So yeah, it's especially looking at that. Yeah, LaShore just he walked in the end zone about 3 or 4 times.
And
He
and
didn't
then
even
Bell
run.
did too. Well, Bell's actually surprisingly good. He leaped over a guy and stuff.
Yeah.
Like they actually have some pretty good running backs there. Because if someone gets hurt, I kind of agree with you to an extent. Smith isn't a terrible guy. They don't like him for whatever reason, but he's not a terrible running back. So
It's true.
yeah,
He did look good earlier this year. So my number 3 is also tonight's game. Cecil Shorts versus Indianapolis. And I also threw another one in here as well. I also threw in T.Y. Hilton versus Jacksonville. So pretty much both of, well, Cecil Shorts is the main guy, and T.Y. Hilton's kind of the backup guy, but Dwayne. But
yeah. Well, it's one of those things. Both of the Colts starting cornerbacks didn't even fly out for the game. They're both
which
not
is
playing.
crazy.
And then Mathis isn't playing for Jacksonville in this game. So I think there's going to be a lot of open receivers.
I think
in
there'll
this
be a
game.
lot of scoring. I think it'll be actually for a game that you wouldn't think would be very exciting. I think it should be, especially for anyone like us that really needed to pick up some guys.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people did pick up Vic Ballard because they needed him. But yeah, Indianapolis is already giving up the 7th most points to wide receivers.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Gabbert has a game that's pretty solid in this one.
Mm-hmm. And then also same thing. If you look at, they've already played once this year. They played in week 3. And T.Y. Hilton scored 17 points against Jacksonville. He had like 118 yards and a touchdown. And Shorts scored 13 points off one big 80-yard touchdown. So since they've already played, you kind of already know, or at least have an idea. And so I think it'll be a similar game, except a lot of the defense on both teams is out. So with those corners out and everything else, it should be, I think you are pretty safe playing these two guys if you're in a pinch.
Well, it's kind of weird because Cecil Shorts, contrary to his name, only goes long. And so if he catches 2
Shorts
balls
are-
in this game, it could be 2 80-yard balls for 2 touchdowns. So he's an exciting guy and a disappointing guy at times to have on your team. But yeah, I agree with Eric. If you're in a pinch, either one of those receivers, yeah, it's pretty solid.
Playing both of them, one in one league and one in the other. And yeah, when they played in week 3, Hilton had 4 receptions. Wayne had 8, but Hilton did more with those 4 than Reggie Wayne did with his 8. So my number 4 is Anthony Fasano.
I like that one.
It's definitely a risky play, but with tight ends, like I said, it's just not even. I threw Greg Olsen out last time, and he did awful, and so I went really bold with it.
Fasano's a decent part of that offense.
It's against
though.
Tennessee, yeah. They give up the most points to tight ends. Every week I've been saying it, and they haven't gotten any better. And yeah, I think Tannehill's going to do really well, and I think Fasano could actually be a part of the game, and I think he will have a decent game. I'm not expecting a huge game. I'm expecting 8 or 9 points, but that's better than a lot of tight ends have been giving. Even the big players like Vernon Davis and those
tight end has
haven't
been
even.
slow this year, and Gronk has finally turned it on, but for the most part, it's been slow.
If you don't have Gronk or Heath Miller,
Or Brandon Myers.
Yeah, Brandon Myers. We talked about him as well. I actually kind of should have. Yeah, I talked about picking him up. So
I think you don't have to tell anyone now. I think a lot of people have picked him up. He's every week he's been steadily improving. I think he's probably hit his wall. I don't think he's going to get 2 touchdowns in very many games, but I think people are seeing now that he is one of Carson Palmer's main targets. So yeah,
it's very true. And my number 5 in a pinch, I went with 2 again here. I did the Eagles versus Dallas and the Cowboys versus Philadelphia. So it's another one where I picked 2 because they're playing each other, but both of those teams, Dallas and Philadelphia, are both allowing the second and third most of points to opposing teams. So I think you could see a lot of sacks from the Cowboys if you play them, and I think you could see a lot of picks the other way because Romo loves to throw the ball to the other player.
And
so
that's
I
the
think
thing
that
is-
game is going to be a lot of defenses doing a lot of crazy things.
and that's
so.
the thing is, at any moment, I really think either one of these teams, and you've seen it happen before. Look at how bad Pittsburgh's line was at the beginning of the season. They're incredible now. Like they're finding lanes for the running backs, and it's helping out a ton. And then, but that's the thing is, if the Eagles find a way to block for Vic, they could all of a sudden be awesome. And if the Cowboys find a way to run the right routes, Des Bryant, then all of a sudden Tony Romo, or catch the ball every time, Tony Romo could be awesome. So that's the thing is, at any moment, these teams could take that next step and be great.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But right now it's not happening, and that's why they're allowing the second and third most, because any team playing these 2 teams are getting those picks and the sacks. And so, but it's good if you need a defense this week, because either one of them should be pretty good plays. So if you're in a pinch, I would play either one of those.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. All right, now we're going to move over to our top 5 games of the week. And the first game of the week is the game that's about to start in about 15 minutes, and that is the Colts at the Jaguars. And we've kind of talked about this game a lot, so I'm just going to go ahead and go out there and say I'm going to pick the Colts. Who do you think's got this game, Eric?
I don't know, because if you go back and look, they've already played once. I mentioned that earlier. I don't know if you heard.
Yeah, you did.
I did. And the Jaguars actually won 22-17. But I think the Colts, have really figured out their game. I think Luck has really turned it on. And I think the Jaguars look good, but I think they look about the same. I don't feel like they've really gotten any better.
And they're missing their main player in NJD, so
yes,
it's kind of a big deal.
And so because of that, I think Luck, it took him a few games to kind of get into looking like he has, and he's looked great. So I'm going to go with Luck and the Colts.
All right. Who do you think, Lane?
The Jaguars got a taste of the horse, so they're hungry and they want more horse to eat. But I think they're just going to take a horse hoof to the face.
Okay, so Lane's also wanting the Colts. Sometimes I feel like I have to kind of interpret at the end there to make sure people know what's going on. All right, and the second game of the week is the Giants at the Bengals. And I picked this game just because it's 2 teams that I think, like the Giants are in a lot better position, but there's 2 teams that I think should be doing better than they are. And I think both of them are primed to have big games. So I think it'll be an exciting game. And it's one of those things that I think the Bengals have been underplaying. And I don't know if that's because they have just been assuming they have the games or something. But I think they're going to go out and I think they're going to surprise the Giants. I think the Bengals are going to win this. What do you think, Eric?
I think Eli's going to bounce back, and I think he's going to look like old Eli again, because he just really has not looked very good. I think they really want to win, and I think so. I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to go with the Giants.
All right, what do you think, Lane?
I think the Giants are just going to bang around this old team. This is these old guys. Just bang around these old guys.
Oh, the Bengals. That's a stretch.
The Bengals. They're actually gals.
Oh,
Gals.
turns out they're girls.
They're going to
not
go in there
guys.
and they're going to bang those gals.
Exactly why they're going to get banged around. A lot of banging. A lot of giant banging going to be going on with those gals.
Giant. Okay, so.
Maybe about a gallon worth of banging.
Oh, my gosh. So I'm assuming that means you want the Giants.
What? No.
Oh, you want the Bengals.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Giants.
All right, cool. All right, in And all right, so moving to the third game of the week is the Cowboys at the Eagles, and this is a big in division game. And I honestly think whoever loses this game could very easily be the end of their season.
Yep.
And I think, like I said, I think at any moment either one of these teams could bounce back. And I have a hard time because I really like Tony Romo, and I really think that he gets a lot of he gets basically all the negative from everyone about how bad they've been doing. And I don't think it's necessarily him. Their main running back's out, and the other running backs they have are terrible, and the receivers don't always catch the ball and are really hurting them. But basically, I have to go with the Eagles here because I think the Eagles are up against the wall, and I think they have too much talent to be awful. And you saw last week, they tried to come back against the Saints, and the Saints defense looked a lot better in that game. And that's the thing is the Cowboys do have a good D, so they might get to Vic a lot, but I think Vic is ready to lead his team to a victory. So I think the Eagles are going to win this. What do you think there, Eric?
I watched the game, and the Eagles just looked awful. And
You already watched this game? It didn't happen yet?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, I'll let him go with this thing.
I got to listen to Eric's advice.
Yeah.
so I've already watched this game.
Okay.
And no, I watched the Saints game.
Oh.
And I just don't think that, and it's not Vic. It's not his fault. It really is that offensive line. He grabs the ball, and before the ball is even to him, he's already sacked.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
That's pretty impressive because he's grabbing it.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. It's absolutely insane. But and so I just don't see it getting any better. So I'm gonna have to go Cowboys just because I watched that game. I just don't think Vic can get them the victory.
And I can see that. No, I like
That's
that.
great.
I can see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
All right, what do you think, Lanny?
Well, with the election season just getting over, it's really a question of who's more patriotic. You know, a star that's the mascot, but is the symbol of the Cowboys, and Cowboys are pretty American too. You know, Wild West days, or the Eagle, and I just got to go with the Eagle as the more patriotic symbol there. But I do think Eric has some strong points. If they shut down Vic, it's over.
He looked so bad.
But Eagles.
He didn't look
Eagles.
bad.
America.
America.
America. All right, and then we're going to
I
move
like that one.
to the fourth game of the week, which is the Texans at the Bears.
Ooh.
And I think we talked about this game a lot. And I think this is really it's going to be focused around the two strong defenses, but I think it's going to be a question of what random player is going to make a difference there. Is Arian Foster going to randomly be able to break a huge run against the Bears defense that has looked amazing all year? Is Brandon Marshall going to be able to take advantage of the one weak spot, which is the Texans have actually given up a fair amount of points to wide receivers. Like they're not like one of the worst teams by any means, but that is by far their weakness.
Is Tillman going to have his baby and he's going to miss the game?
Yeah.
That's
If
another question
Tillman
you have to ask
misses the
yourself.
game, then that'll make a huge difference. But yeah, so it's one of those things where it's who is going to step up, and I love Brandon Marshall. I've talked about it a lot. I think he's great, but I also you have to respect the game of Arian Foster, and you have to think when is Andre Johnson going to step up and do something, and so it's one of those things that I'm really torn on the game, but I think if there's a team that's less disciplined, which I think it's going to come down to, it's the Bears. So I think the Texans are going to win this one. What do you think, Eric?
This one's crazy because I felt like the Bears had that one bad game. They're both 7-1, both teams.
Mm-hmm. They both lost to the same team.
Really?
Yeah, they both lost to the
Packers?
Yeah.
And so this whole time I've been waiting.
It's weird when stuff hits you and you're like, oh,
yeah,
interesting little thing that interesting little tidbit.
I was about to use the word tidbit. You beat me, Sean.
Oh, sorry about that.
This is why I'm not on the couch for the podcast.
And so I've been wanting to say, for the past few weeks that the Bears are that legitimate team and that they look really good. I've been really stoked about them, and I felt like I wanted to go all in and say that the Bears are going to take this game and they're going to win it, and people can finally say that the Bears look good, and people can stop giving Cutler all the grief they're
They
giving
can
him.
cut Cutler some slack.
Yep. But I don't think it's going to happen.
I know it's tough, huh? Because I want the same thing. I love the Texans too. But it's one of those things where I'm like,
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really tough game for the Texans, and I actually really agree with what you just said. I think they're not going to be able to run all over, so they're going to have to throw, and because of that, it could be a really big throwing game.
mhm.
Even though I put Schaub as my sit, I'm going to go Texans.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
What do you think there, Lingita?
You know, they both got some pretty good stats behind. I mean, sorry, they're both some pretty big animals. But I think come this Sunday, I think the Bears are going to take the bull by the horns.
Oh, I like it. I like it. And I think statistically, Lane is a lot better at picking these games than us. So
I
Bears
think
fans,
so, too.
Bears fans are gonna like it.
We should figure out what we actually are
The
and say
Bears.
it before
Yeah,
everyone.
I figured I was gonna. I need to look it up at some point. Maybe
I don't
I'll
think
do
we
it
need
soon.
to like go through each one, but just stats on how good we are.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna move over to the last game of the week, and this could be a blowout and be an awful game, but it is the Chiefs at the Steelers, and the Steelers
They're
are
banged up.
Yeah, they're banged up, but they're also their defense has actually looked pretty good, and the Chiefs are not a good offense by any means. Like I love
Mhm.
Charles. I think Bo is really good at catching a random touchdown in junk time, but he hasn't been good at all lately.
Mhm.
And their quarterback situation's a mess. So and Charles got his head smashed last game. I still think he's going to play, but I think he's going to be nervous. So I have to go with the Steelers here. And I don't really think it's going to be that close of a game. Like Steelers have looked amazing lately, and I have picked up their defense in both leagues I'm in because I just think they're going to shut them down.
Because I put them in here.
Well, and because Eric put them in there, mainly
you,
because
you
Eric
play
put 'em in
whoever's
there.
You just
playing Kansas
barely did
City
it.
defense.
Yeah, it's
true.
the general rule of thumb.
It's true. I've said it all year, and people should live by it. I'm going to go Steelers as well.
All right, what do you think, Lane?
Well, I'm going to get a little racial and controversial up here.
Oh, that's not
And
good.
in the spirit of Thanksgiving, just like the white man stole the land from the red man,
Whoa.
so are the Steelers going to steal this game from the Chiefs.
Oh, we're getting a lot of hate mail. We're
Poor
getting shut down.
Chief-
We're getting
poor
pulled off
Chief.
the air.
But in football, it's going to be in the good way.
Lane really went off the reservation on that one. Well, there that is.
I'm muting my mic.
All right, so we have 1 minute. We did get a question in the chat. It is
What is the question?
question,
The question is, what is the question?
and it's a good San Francisco or Miami for defense.
San Francisco.
Yeah, I think San Francisco
Without a
hands
doubt.
down. Yeah, they're playing the Rams.
Miami gives up too many yards passing. They
They
have a
do.
good defense
Luck.
running, but yeah, I think the Titans are going to get some points on them.
That is very true. And then we got a question on Twitter this week.
The question on Twitter. Sorry, let me pull that up really quick. The question on Twitter was, it was basically, he said, I already have Ridley at the flex. Do I stick with Bo at receiver, or do I go with Hartline or Mike Williams? And basically what I said was, Bo has been awful lately. He hasn't scored more than 7 points in his last 4 games. So I think you got to go with Williams because he scored a touchdown in each of his last 2 games and has just looked good. And that's the thing is, I didn't put this in there because Twitter only has so much room, but I would go with Hartline as well over Bo. Bo would be my last pick of those 3, especially this week. So yeah, there's that. And then we actually
agree.
got
We got another one in the chat really quick, which actually is about tonight. So it's
Uh-huh.
start 2, Reggie Wayne, Roddy White, and Wes Welker. As much as I like Reggie Wayne tonight, I think if you go Roddy White and Wes Welker, I think you're fine as well. I mean, it's because you might not have time.
Wes
anymore.
Welker has looked good, and so has
But the Falcons are going
Reggie
up
Wayne
against.
has looked good too. That thing is all
I
three
think
of those
you
guys.
have to play Rod. It's against the Saints.
Yeah,
the
Roddy
Saints
White for
are
sure.
Throwing. I mean, you can throw all over the Saints. I think every Falcon is going to have just ridiculous numbers. So you
Mhm.
have to play Roddy White, and then Wes Welker. They're going up against Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo's also
So as much as
not great.
Reggie Wayne looks like the guy to play tonight. I think I would go with the other two. Although all three of them have incredibly great matchups. So that was from Big is double zero in the chat room. So welcome and thank you for asking a question. So that is our show for tonight. Enjoy the game. Good luck.
And hopefully some of those people you had to probably pick up because of all the damn injuries in the NFL work out for you. Because, yeah, we are both using some of those in a pinch people that Eric had. So, yeah, thanks for
I
joining
wish I
us.
was as good as Big as double zero with those three.
Yeah, those three are
My
amazing.
gosh, I had to play T.Y. Hilton and Cecil Shorts. I would kill for Reggie Wayne, Roddy White, and Wes Welker right now.
Yeah, that's a good lineup.
They were in a flex, so
That's why they call them Big E's 00.
that's true. Mine are in a flex, so I do have better wide receivers than those, but still.
Oh,
I don't want people thinking I'm awful at fantasy
yeah.
because I do have Calvin Johnson and a bunch of other people, but still.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and come check us out an hour before the game on Monday and Thursday, and we are Fantasy Top 5.
Yeah, peace.
Out.